Joe here with S3 Archery, and it's that time of year again. The kids are back in school, leaves are falling from the trees, birds are flying south. That only means one thing for us hunters, and it's white-tailed deer hunting season. So with that comes all the excitement, all the conversations that you're having with your buddies about the spots that you're going to have, about how many points your buck is going to have when you harvest your deer. But with all that fun conversation, there's one conversation that Dan and I here from S3 Archery, we never really hear about it. And based off a lot of the actions that we see here out the range, we think it's a conversation that needs to be had. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to come before you all today, and I wanted to talk about the topic of finding your effective range as a hunter. So this is very, very different from your target range or from your practice range, in that we are actually shooting at a live animal, and it is our responsibility as hunters in the field and to protect the sport itself, to take the most ethical shot possible to harvest our animal. So I want to talk about that today and talk about really why I'm even bringing up this conversation. And then I'll give you guys a few tips about how to find your effective range. So first things first, why are we even talking about it? Well, you don't have to spend much time on an archery range to soon discover that whether it's compound shooters or traditional archers, you'll see people come to the range and they'll shoot 5, 10 shots from 10, 15, 20 yards, and then right away they're moving all the way back. They're going to the 50-yard spot, the 60-yard spot, and they're shooting. And what's even more frustrating to see is when you see somebody and they're setting up their bow for the first time, and you can tell they are definitely not advanced archers. They're brand new to archery. They're setting up their bow, and they'll sight in their bow at 20 yards, and then they walk right away to 40 or 50 yards, and they start shooting from there already. So in my opinion, nothing is more frustrating than seeing that, and nothing is more concerning to me as an ambassador for the sport of archery and for hunting. So, and why I'm saying that is, in Dan's and my opinion, especially with traditional archery, I think that's the epitome of what I'm about to say, is with hunting, we're not killing. It's not called the sport of killing. It's the sport of hunting. So it's man versus wild. It's man versus turkey, man versus deer, man versus elk. Whatever animal that is that you are hunting, you're trying to outsmart that animal. So with the invention of the gun, the advantage swung greatly over to the human, and they were able to shoot 100, 200, 300, 400 yards away and still harvest this animal, despite the animal not even knowing that you're there. With archery, that kind of reined it back in, but, and I'm really going to kind of blame the modern marketing of compound archery. If you go on to any kind of TV show and you're looking at these really big name celebrities shooting, very rarely do you actually see one of these celebrities shoot an animal from 10 yards or from 5 yards. More often than not, these celebrities are taking ridiculous shots. They're taking 40, 50, 60-yard shots at deer. And to no surprise to anybody who knows anything about hunting, what's really comical about those shows is that they'll be out there at dawn, and then they will shoot the animal probably at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and then the camera flips off. And then the next time that you see that celebrity next to that huge 10-point buck or 12-point buck or whatever it is that they shot, it's nighttime. What happened to the other 14 hours of the day? I'll tell you what happened, is they ended up putting a rather poor shot in that animal. They had to wait 10 or 12 hours for that animal to expire while it suffered out there in the fields or in the woods. And then they went and harvested their animal, and they talk like they did the most amazing shot. And that just is not hunting to Dan and I, and I'm hoping that majority of our viewers agree with us with that. So it is our responsibility to ensure that you can hit that animal in its vital zone, and you can put it down, and you can kill that animal in less than a minute. So that is the goal of every single archer, whether you're compound or traditional. And I think as a population, we are beginning to move away from that, and we're starting to be a little bit more like gun hunters, where they're shooting from much farther distances, and the pride isn't in tricking the animal and getting as close as possible to the animal. The pride is beginning to center around, well, how far did you get your deer? And you'll hear people say, well, I got my deer from 45 yards. And another person will boast and they'll say, well, that's funny because I got mine from 60 yards. And I just think that's like the completely kind of ass backwards way of thinking about it. The person who shot the deer from 60 yards, in my opinion, is the worst hunter. Yeah, you're good with a bow maybe. I mean, you can obviously put an arrow on target from 60 yards. That's great. But what did you do wrong as a hunter to need to take a 60-yard shot? And that's where I want to get people's mentality, philosophy kind of shifted over, especially if you're in traditional archery. And I want to get that to being, if you were a gun hunter, you only need to get as good as getting within 200 yards of that animal. If you're going to make that decision to shift over to compound archery, you now need to get within 40 yards, 50 yards, and really you should try to get much, much closer. And then for us traditional archers, if you're making that decision to go to traditional archery, you're going to do it the hard way, the hardest way that we can do it, and you're using all traditional equipment. Our goal is to get within 10 yards of our animals. So I've harvested a few animals in my day, and I would say that the farthest animal I've ever taken was my very first deer with a compound bow at 15 yards. And it was great. But every animal since then has been less than 15 yards, and I take pride in that as a hunter. So I'm doing the pre-work. I'm finding out where are these animals going, what time of day are they going to come, where do I need to be given the wind positions in order to get the best shot and to get as close as possible. So that's what I want to do with us. So that's really why I'm bringing this up. And now the question is, well, how do we find our effective range as archers? So what I've done is I have brought, and on the bale behind me you'll see, I have an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Everybody has these at home. Just pull out a bill that you don't particularly like and go ahead and just stick it onto a block, and then start as close as possible, really. Start at 5 yards or 10 yards, and we're going to shoot 5 arrows. And really our indication that we're at our effective hunting range, and we should never go any further, is when we can't get 4 out of 5 arrows to be in that white piece of paper. So right now it is mid-October. The rut is just going to start coming on in the next 2 weeks. So 8.5 by 11 is probably a pretty good reference point for your average buck whitetail. If you're shooting something like a turkey, obviously you're going to need a smaller piece of paper, so you want to adjust that piece of paper for the vitals of the animal that you're shooting at. But the key, like I said, is we want to be as ethical as possible. We want to be good ambassadors for the sport of archery. If we start going out shooting animals all the time and we're wounding them and they're not dying, or we've got all these gruesome stories about how it took hours to kill this animal, people aren't going to like archery that much, and they're going to have groups that are going to advocate against archery. So we need to make sure that we're doing our part as archers to show the good side of archery and what archery really is, not what it is on the marketing side or on TV and whatnot. So we'll start from close range, shoot 4 out of 5. That's 80%. You should be able to do 80%. If you're going to try to take an animal's life, you should be at least 80% confident in your ability to take that life from the range that you're shooting at it. And we'll keep moving back until we no longer can do a 4 out of 5. And it's important to note that this is going to change for every single person. On 1 month, you may be just spot on, and your effective range, I'll talk traditional archery, your effective range is out to 30 yards. 30 yards, you can always get your arrow to hit within an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper in a hunting scenario. Other times, you might take a month off of archery, or maybe you're just having a bad month, and your range goes all the way down to 10 yards. You just aren't feeling confident in yourself, and you have to be at 10 yards. It's important to know that. As an example for myself, I know in the past summer, I just got really hot. I really was impressed with my shooting, and I could pretty much shoot a silver dollar anywhere out to about 40 yards, and I was really impressed. Then, as some of you know on our subscribers, some of our subscribers know, I got very, very sick over the summer, and I basically not shot since July. I've completely taken off archery, so now I'm just starting to come back on, which is why I haven't posted a lot of videos here. So I'm guessing my effective range right now is going to be 10, 15 yards. And that's a long way to fall, but that's okay, because my job isn't to be the best shooter in the woods. My job is to be the best hunter in the woods and know myself so I can harvest that animal. So just food for thought for all of you. So let me step up, let me kind of show you the example here, and then I hope this actually helps a lot of you hunters, and I hope it really starts a really good discussion with a lot of you. And feel free to post comments below in the video comment section, and let's talk about this, because I just don't hear it from a lot of people, and I really think it's worth talking about, especially during hunting season. So let's give it a shot here. I'll start at about 5 yards, and I'll shoot at this white piece of paper, 5 arrows, and I'll keep moving back till I miss. Alright, hang tight. Gonna start busting arrows, so maybe space them out a little bit if you can from the closer yardages if you're feeling pretty good, just so you're not busting arrows. Alright, so I just shot from about 5-6 yards. I can take the camera off and I'll show you guys, and I'll reset up and we'll do it again. And you want to shoot a little faster. You don't want to get in target mode. So that's an 8.5 by 11. And you can see that they're all right in there. There's 5 in there, and it's safe to say that I could shoot a deer from 5 yards and be confident in my abilities. So let's set back up and shoot from 10, and we'll keep going back until I can't do it. Alright, so we just shot those 5 arrows from about 5 or 6 yards. Did a pretty good job. Feeling pretty good that I can at least hunt this year. I'm good enough that I can get within 5 yards of a deer. I can harvest that deer. So at least I know I'm in the game. Now I've moved back to about 10 yards, and we'll shoot 5 from here and see if I can shoot from 10 yards. We're looking for 4 out of 5 at least from every single range. Hopefully the sun doesn't distort the camera. I saw that the sun kind of messed up the first shot, so sorry about that. Alright, we'll take a look at that. Well, everyone, that's pretty much the drill. So in order to be as ethical as we can be and be the best hunters that we can, we need to know our effective range. So in order to do that, we had a piece of paper that was the exact same size basically as the vitals of the animal that we're shooting at. We set that up at 5 yards, then went back to 10 yards, go back to 15, and we find that range where we start to not have the ability to hit those vitals about 80% of the time. And that's our effective range as hunters. So I think if you try this drill, I think you're going to have a lot more confidence in yourself out in the woods. You're going to know your abilities, you're going to know your limitations, and you're going to have a lot more fun in the woods. And rather than talking to your buddies next year about the deer that got away after you shot it and how you wish you could have recovered that, You're going to be talking about the deer that you did harvest and how proud you are of getting that excellent shot on it from the range that you knew you could take. So, until next time, shoot straight, have fun out there, and thanks for tuning in, everyone.